This is the Villains of Man. I'm JVD, bringing you another comic book review over Avengers Standoff, an event which runs through a few one-shots and multiple titles within Marvel. I'll leave a list of all the titles involved in the description of this video. Before I begin, here's a small summary of the plot. Maria Hill and S.H.I.E.L.D. have been running a project called Kobik in a small town called Pleasant Hill. Here they've been using a child formed from fragments of multiple cosmic cubes to rewrite the minds of villains in hopes that they will live their lives happy with no knowledge of their past. As a hacker called the Whisperer brings this to the attention of multiple heroes, all hell breaks loose as the residents of the quiet town revert to their former selves. Now, if you plan on reading this, here's a tip. As a comic reader, you should already know that most titles involved will have very little to do with the main plot. Of the titles involved, I think Captain America Sam Wilson issue 7 and 8 is the most important. It deals with the three main heroes of the story, which are Sam himself, Bucky Barnes the Winter Soldier, and Captain America. All find out about Pleasant Hill through various means, and they go to investigate. Overall, it's not a bad story, but I don't think it's a good story either. It's got no definitive ending. It's basically used to set up plot points within various characters in their titles in the future. First is Steve Rogers. If you've been keeping up with Steve Rogers in Marvel, he's been old for quite some time. In the story, Kobik reverts him back to his younger self, allowing him to fight during the finale. An interesting point about this is he tells Sam and Bucky that he believes she made him better than what he used to be. Now, I assume this means physically better, which says a lot about Steve Rogers because he's already physically one of the most badass people in Marvel. Second is the return of Red Skull and Baron Zemo, two of Captain America's greatest villains. At the end of the book, both escape and start to fulfill their own agendas. Red Skull starts with reforming Hydra. It seems like he's going small to take his time and be patient with this. While Baron Zemo in the finale is teleported away by Kobik, with Eric Selvig, who's assisting the child in brainwashing the villains. Now, if that name sounds familiar to you, Eric Selvig is from the Thor movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this seems to be his comic book debut. Third is Avril Kincaid. She's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. working there at Pleasant Hill, and she becomes the new Quasar. For some reason, Wendell Vaughn volunteered to have his appearance changed like almost everybody else in Pleasant Hill, but he wanted to keep the quantum bands there. They don't sound like a great idea. Run a bunch of brainwashed villains. Sounds like a very stupid move on his behalf, even S.H.I.E.L.D.'s behalf, by letting him do it. But in the end, Avril uses them to defeat Gravitron, which helped the heroes win the day. So maybe somehow Wendell knew that they'd be needed. At the end of the book, he's shown training Kincaid on how to use the bands. And finally is Maria Hill, who is falling from her high station in S.H.I.E.L.D. This seems to be a long time coming since she's took over from Nick Fury years ago in Secret War. I would expect her, when she's finally demoted and kicked from S.H.I.E.L.D., to show up in another book. Maybe Thunderbolt, since she had strong ties to Kobik at the end of this story, which I'll touch on later. So by now you're probably wondering who or what is Kobik. She, or it, depending on how you see it, is S.H.I.E.L.D.'s experiment, and I quote this from the comic, to alter reality with the cosmic cube fragments in the interest of global security. Basically, this is Maria Hill mind-wiping villains into citizens to keep them from wreaking havoc on the world. It's kind of interesting because it seems like Marvel is playing with the idea that cosmic cubes can become sentient beings and evolve. The ones that S.H.I.E.L.D. had, these fragments from separate cosmic cubes, merge into a small girl. And what's interesting, it even acts like a small girl. Seems to have the same enjoyments as small kids, like eating ice cream. What was kind of surprising is it seems like it felt fear when Zemo and the Thunderbolts break into the compound that she's in. She takes refuge in a bowling alley, which seemed to be her favorite place in town. And even like a child, when all of it blows up in her face in the finale, Kobik throws a huge temper tantrum. She throws Bucky through a window, teleports Zemo away, and she even terrified the heroes and villains there, because basically she's a omnipotent child with the ability to alter parts of the universe. So it's pretty interesting to see where she goes when after this book ends. You see her apologizing to Bucky, and she leaves with him. So look out for that in the Thunderbolts title. There's quite a few high points for me in the book. I'd say first was probably Zemo's outlook on what was happening to him and all the villains around him. Seeing how he and everyone was treated, he finds it only fair that everyone else is treated based on what happened to him. Mostly this plays in towards Maria Hill, since this was all her big idea. At one part, she needs medical attention after the attack on the compound that her and Kobik was at. And she needs medical assistance. So, everybody else needs medical assistance, so Zemo says someone has to take her place and give up their opportunity for medical assistance. So he asks this run-of-the-mill, geeky, kind of chubby-looking SHIELD agent if he was willing to do it. He says, yeah, he's willing to switch her places. I don't think he realizes that he's going to die, and Zemo takes a sword and beheads him. Then he goes on about how they're going to need protection as they travel to the infirmary, because they offered protection to all the villains, so it's only fair that they get protection from all the villains that realize this is all Maria Hill's fault, that they've been brainwashed. So he gets a preacher to protect him, and he even says, you know, that's what preachers do, they protect the weak. So the preacher sees him to the infirmary, and oddly enough, it's the Red Skull. What's kind of funny about Zemo in the end of all this is he's very upset that he was brainwashed, you know. And he sees it's only fair that he gets to use Kobik himself to brainwash the world into serving him. Another one was the 3 meetings of the Captain Americas in the Sam Wilson book. I can't stress that's probably the best part of this story. Now, I'm by no means a fan of Sam Wilson. You know, to me, no matter how hard Marvel tries to make him relevant, it never works. But they might have stumbled upon something in those 2 issues. I had no desire to read his new title. As I said, I'm not a fan. But those 2 issues made this event. They were by far the best part of the story. You've got to hear the point of views from all 3 of them as their time as Captain America, and what they stood for while holding the role. Then you finally got to see them team up and see how well they worked as a unit. Even as Bucky and Sam are running through Pleasant Hill before they even realize Captain America's there, you know, they even are, you know, talking, you know, to themselves about how well they work as a unit. And then when Captain America gets revived to his younger self, you know, it's even intensified. So, I think what Marvel should do is put these 3 in their own titles. I mean, as stupid as it sounds, you call it Captain America's. I mean, that's what DC's about to currently do with Green Lanterns. But, I think it'd be interesting to see them in, like, espionage stories and of the sorts. Kind of like the Captain America Winter Soldier movie. You know, stories like that. And with Red Skull and Zemo running around, they're going to have plenty to do if you team those three up. And to go with that, also in the MCU, you kind of see this friendly rivalry with Bucky and Falcon. Bucky being the friend from World War II, and Sam being the friend currently. So there seems like there's an opportunity there Marvel shouldn't miss out on to bring that little rivalry to the comic books. Now, my favorite part of Assault on Pleasant Hill really had nothing to do with what was going on at Pleasant Hill at all. And it was a Project Troubleshooter, aka American Kaiju, in the New Avengers part of the story. Now, I'm a huge fan of Godzilla and the world of giant monsters, so I really dug this. There seems to be a lot of nods to Godzilla in the three parts to this book. Issue 9 of New Avengers is called Up from the Depths. And then they say American Kaiju is 30 stories high. Now, if you ever heard the theme song from the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla show, you would know there are the two opening lines. So I thought that was really, really funny. To emphasize the nod to that cartoon, the General even summons American Kaiju with a device with a huge red button on it when he rises from the ocean. I thought that was really, really funny. To top off nods to Godzilla, American Kaiju's real name is Todd Ziller. Now, if you've ever watched an American dubbed Godzilla film, there's a good chance you've heard them call the big G Godzilla more than once. And it's quite often done in the High Sci series, so if you've ever watched those movies, surely you've heard that. And continued with the giant monster fun, American Kaiju fights a mech called Avenger 5. And Sunspot has built it, and it requires 5 minds to run parallel to control the robot. Kind of really sounds like something from Pacific Rim or Voltron. Now, what's interesting about American Kaiju is his creation, what it took to make a normal, everyday soldier into a 30-story monster. Now, the military is trying to recreate the super soldier. There's nothing, new there. They've been trying ever since comics were created. But to fill in the gaps in Erskine's formula, they're using hacked or reversed engineered versions of gamma enhancement. There you go for the Hulk. Mutant growth hormone. That's basically what gives people mutant powers like the X-Men. Pym particles. If you've seen Civil War by now, those are capable of turning Ant-Man into Giant Man. And if you watched Amazing Spider-Man, they're using Kurt Connor's lizard formula. So all that mixed together gets you a Godzilla-like creature. And I wouldn't be surprised if this formula is used again, but with a different outcome. And maybe before you know it, we're going to have a bunch of 30-story monsters up from the depths fighting each other in the Marvel Universe. Expect to see American Kaiju and Fing Fang Foom thrown down in the future. Now, most importantly to me is S.H.I.E.L.D. agents love fantasy football as much as I do. Probably the highest point of the book. Go figure, Maria Hill hates it. It's funny, in the beginning of this whole story, you see these S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and they're breaking into a facility, like a control center. You kind of think that, oh man, these guys are like undercover Hydra agents or something. No, they're just S.H.I.E.L.D. guys who really, really want to watch football. One of them hacks all the screens, and they're showing all the games. It's pretty awesome. But, like I said, Maria Hill, she hates football. Apparently, she hates fantasy football, but it looks like she's going to have some time on her hands here soon. So maybe she'll give it a chance. Now, there's just as many low points as there are high points in the event. The biggest, to me, is that the story is stretched through so many titles, and most of them having very little to do with anything that's going on at Pleasant Hill before or during the uprise. That drives me crazy. I hate when comic companies do that to sell books, but I mean, I completely understand it. You've got to make money. A lot of times they'll do that to titles that aren't selling well just to get you to buy that issue, hoping that you might read that title more. I mean, I completely understand it. But if you're one of the people that want to read every part of the storyline, it really hurts the wallet. Now, the start of the low points for me in this story began with the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. book. To me, those characters don't translate well from screen to story. I kind of hate it because I feel like Marvel's trying to say, hey, these guys have a history in our universe. It's been there, you just don't know it till now. Really can't stand that. I hate when they try to bring what's going on in the movies to the comics. I mean, keep those separate. No one wants your movies mixed up with your comics. Keep them two separate worlds. Give me two separate stories. I love both of it anyway, so don't mix it. What kills me is every time I read Deathlock's dialogue, I kept hearing Cyborg's voice from Teen Titans. More specifically, Teen Titans Go. Show kind of drives me crazy. Couldn't get it out of my head. So, yeah. Don't ever expect me to do a review over any Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. books unless it's tied into an event that I plan on reading. Another one was Rick Jones, who is a.k.a. the Whisperer. If you haven't found that out yet, kind of like Falcon, Marvel tries to keep him relevant, and it always seems to fail. Even as A-Bomb, I mean, as cool as that was, at that time, you already had too many Hulks. You had She-Hulk, Rolk, A-Bomb, the Harpy. During all that stuff after War, Hulk got way outplayed. But in this book, he kind of takes something similar to the Pill in the Limitless movie. And he spends all of his time on the computer, so he becomes a hacker. Becomes real brilliant with a computer. What's bad is he never had the time to develop any other skills because he kept spending so much time on the computer. He's the guy that finds out about Pleasant Hill, blows a whistle on it, informs the world about it, informs the Falcon, aka Captain America, about it. So what's kind of cool is he expects people to come after him, and he's planned for this by taking gadgets and weapons of villains to use to his advantage. It's kind of neat for the character, but the character's just not interesting, so it's really not going to draw my attention. It probably won't draw the attention of any other fans reading the book or anything about him. Now, before I wrap this up, I got one final note about Assault on Pleasant Hill Avengers Standoff story. I kind of believe Pleasant Hill is named after Maria Hill being so excited that she created a very successful S.H.I.E.L.D. project before it fell apart. In the book, she's very, seems to be very up-tempo, happy-go-lucky. Kind of amusing. She's very full of self-confidence when she takes Steve Rogers there and is showing everything like, look what I've created. I'm very proud of myself, This is succeeding. Now, in a crazy turn of events, when Steve's trying to take her to the infirmary when she's injured, she reveals she had plans to have Kobik erase her mind. I thought that was really, really cool because she wanted to live a happy, normal life as a civilian, but she knew she couldn't do that knowing everything she's did as director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I kind of wish this would have been the ending for the story. I think it'd been very, very impactful to know that someone has actually realized all the damage, all the trouble they've caused, and can't live with it and want to be done with it. But with Kobik still being around, I think eventually this will happen. And it will probably be after she does some outstanding heroic deed to be remembered by. And then she'll have her mind erased. So keep a good lookout for that. I think that's going to happen eventually. But this has been my review on Avengers Standoff, Assault on Pleasant Hill. This is The Villain's Man. I'm JVD. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Share this video. Keep reading, guys.